by 2030, everything will have changed.
Correct.
At the state level, at the federal level, and so forth. So I like the fact that there's no extra credit. I thought that was idiotic. If it was important, it should have been included in some way, and if it wasn't important, why wouldn't you include it, make it extra credit, so to speak. So I think some of the things that you've highlighted as improvements, I agree with, but it still seems like a relatively complex and not terribly informative system to me.
Thank you.
You can use our standard. Thank you for your comment. No, I agree. Like it seems to the same. Dr. Darnell kind of took the words out of my mouth. That it seems like yet another kind of we're just chasing something, and I don't even know what it is. But I wanted to ask you about you mentioned that schools will be able to use their local test to report with. And so then I was thinking, well, how is that fair, uniform? How can Pennridge be compared to another school district that's using a different formula, basically? Yeah.
Which is it's a great question. There's criteria that it's many pages long that you have to go through, and there's only certain assessments that will even fall into the category, and then it has to be approved. I don't know if Dr. Bolton, you know the answer to that or not, in terms of, I don't know how they decided on which ones they would accept and which ones they wouldn't.
They have not defined the approval process yet to submit your own assessment, but the example they have given us have been company-produced, normed exams. And so things like Linkit, programs that could be used that are not developed by the district. I have not seen an example where a school district has developed a test and said, here's how we're evaluating third grade reading, because obviously then you could design a test that would give you pretty good numbers. And so they are trying to use. Most districts, as Dr. Scheid said, have found that their numbers are better off if they are using the PSSA results as of now, as we are looking to develop what other possibilities are out there for us. But they are all standards-based as well as norm-referenced criteria pieces that they would require us to use.
More to come.
No other questions, comments? Thank you, Dr. Scheid.
Thank you.
So our next curriculum committee meeting is scheduled for October 8th, and we're back to public comment.
Sue Furlong, West Rock Hill Township. A couple of questions on the environmental science textbook. It was mentioned that there are certain chapters available. I was wondering if those could be made available to the public. And also the presentation with the scores. I know we do very well with science. It's probably a bright spot. And I think that presentation would make a nice presentation, make it available to the public, because I think it speaks well of how we're doing. Jogged my memory, last year, you're right, we did PSSAs a little bit later, and then we got snowed out and a cancellation, and we skipped a month and never did really get around to the middle school PSSA evaluation, but we did do the high school. Hopefully we will not have the bad weather this year. If I understood what was said correctly, the SPP scores will be made available to the administration, not to the public. Will there be, do you know if that's going to be by building, or will that be just by the district?
It's by building.
Can you make that available to the public?
I don't know whether you can or whether you can't. All I know is it will not be on the public website.
Well, I find that to be a very valuable piece of information, especially since we have 7 different elementary schools. And I think that, I know I met a teacher from North Penn who said her contract was actually tied to the SPP score, and if they didn't make improvements, it was a certain percentage or something, they didn't get their raise, or at least not all of it. But it's a great tool for looking building to building to building, and I hate to lose that level of detail. And I don't understand why the state would take that away from the public. If I had a child in a certain elementary school, I would want to see how that school overall is performing. So I'd like for you to find out if that can be made public, and if it can be made public, for us to take the initiative to present that on our websites. Maybe each school, each one has a web page, put that on there. So I would find out about that. Anyway, those were my questions.
Okay, we'll look into that for you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Mrs. Furlong, sorry, I have the chapter example for you.
Okay, well, I was just thinking, some of the parents might want to see that.
Okay.
It's available online as well.
Is it? Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Good evening, Lee Rush, Parkett. I used to have an old joke that my opinion is no longer worth 2 cents, but due to inflation, it's worth a nickel. I have a better one tonight. I actually wanted to figure out what percent of my taxes contributes to our overall budget. I'm sure Sue or I think Dr. Bolton is a math teacher. Somebody will correct me if my math is wrong, but I pay about $4,000 a year in taxes for school. And I think the budget is about $133 million, give or take $1 million. So now I think I represent like 3/1000 of a percent of an opinion. Like whatever this opinion is worth, I'm going to put a value on it. 3/1000 of 1%. Because I'm only one person. I've lived a bunch of years in our district, and I've actually think I've seen 5 superintendents here: Dr. Keim, Dr. Slattery, Dr. Kish, Dr. Radigan, and now Dr. Bolton. And again, welcome to our district. I look so forward to getting to know you more. I love seeing the photographs and the videos so far. Look like you've been having fun, which is great because to me, fun is really essential in education. I want to thank Dave Rice for being on our board, for volunteering, stepping up for that important position. And it is a new year. I remember when I used to teach, New Year's, we were always excited. New year, new beginnings, new class, new students, new faces. This year especially with a new superintendent, a recent new labor contract, which is always a great thing, 5 years of some labor peace, and essentially a new board with 2 new members and a new collective board. And we almost had a new social studies text, but that was not to be this year for a variety of reasons, and I really don't want to belabor it, because it is, to use an old phrase, water under the bridge. But I take that decision and I look at it very closely to understand what was all happening over the course of the decision-making process. So my opinion is this, I guess my concern is this. If I take Peter out of the equation, because he skews everything with his history of 27 years, but if I look at the number of years, the number of months that our board has been serving these positions, it's a relatively, not young in terms of years, but just an inexperienced board. And as you can see, just an intense presentation, the state and policymakers, federal and state level, it's pretty deep, it's a lot of stuff to comprehend, I find, even being in the field and kind of taking all that in. I agree in a way with Peter that, what's here today will be gone tomorrow, so take it with a grain of salt. But my concern is this, over the last several months, and the reason I want to share this tonight, I travel a lot, I'm not going to be around the next several weeks. I missed some meetings, I missed last week's activities meeting. I'm just concerned about the relationship between governance and administration in our district. the relationship between senior staff, administrators, and I think we pay our administrators probably well over $3 million collectively. If we add up our senior cabinet, our principals, it's a lot of money. We pay for top talent, I think we have it. But the rub between administrative and governance issues is critical, I think, for the long-term health of a district and a community. So some of the questions that board members usually ask themselves are this. I mean, I mentioned before in one of my talks about the 4 main goals of a board: budget, curriculum, policy, and choosing the superintendent. But other more deeper questions are this usually for board members. Am I providing ethical leadership to the superintendent and his or her senior staff? And do I establish solid policies that can withstand legal challenges? Am I providing ethical leadership to our superintendent and his or her staff along all different issues around what I should be involved with? Am I establishing solid policies that can withstand more scrutiny within lawyers? And I know that we will be sued from time to time. We can't avoid that at times. We just always want to win. Am I executing my fiduciary responsibility in overseeing expenditures of public funds? And finally, for board members, am I aware of all my own motivations and the choices that I make about which issues I enter into as a discussion participant? Or am I stepping into areas of operations and issues of management that are really in the purview of our senior staff and administrators? And administrators, too, likely ask themselves different questions, such as, do I provide leadership to our board and give them, as clear as I can, my own opinion, my professional opinion, and make clear my hopes and desires for an outcome? Do I point out which policies that we need to have strengthened? Administrators also ask themselves, am I providing direct and honest communication? Direct and honest communication with the board and share my professional opinion on all matters within my purview? Or am I avoiding direct and honest communication to avoid conflicts, thereby placing board members in a position of making an administrative decision? So those are some questions that I think that are, deep. They take time to work through. And I just hope that as we go along that those conversations happen publicly, that we can all see the maturation of this relationship, of how board members take their roles and defer when they need to administrators who spent their entire career learning all the ins and outs of different issues and different decisions. So the most recent one, I guess, that came up was the Activities Committee. I missed the meeting last week. I would have been here. I was on vacation. And I know I'm over my minutes, so I'll let play here, but I just really think that's the next big decision about what truly is within the board's purview and what's in the administration's purview. And it's not an easy one to figure out, but I think that's the big issue about where we draw lines between our roles as board members and administrators. Because I've seen, I travel a lot in America to different districts, I've seen tremendous costs that districts pay, and it's in terms of not financial, in a way, it's human resources of when good people leave districts because they didn't figure out that good relationship. And I hope that never happens, that we don't lose good people because the relationship gets skewed about what area we're both in. So, thank you very much for listening. I wish you all well, and continue having a great beginning of the year, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any comments? If not, we will adjourn this meeting.